Owning any type of restoration business is demanding. Demanding of your time, your energy, and resources. And that's why we're here. This is Restoration Domination. If you're a contractor in water mitigation, mold remediation, biohazard cleanup, roofers, or public adjusters, you'll learn how to dominate using some of the techniques and strategies that our guests will share. We'll interview top industry insiders, movers and shakers, hustlers and hackers, and anyone dominating their industry. This is Restoration Domination. Hustle, hack, and dominate. And here's your host, Rico Garcia.
What is going on, everybody? So, exciting day. Back with another legal corner with our very own Brittany Alexander, better known as Lawyer Britt. What's up?
Everything is up. Everything is up. We've got so many things are happening, and I'm loving it. How are you doing?
Good. So, first things first, let's talk about like the personal life. You just came back from an amazing trip. Tell us about that first and foremost, before we get into all the legal stuff and, you know, what's happening with the Senate bills and everything else. Talk to us about this, this trip that you went on.
Yeah, I went to Italy for my 30th birthday, and for a little over 2 weeks, we went to Positano and Amalfi Coast, Capri, Rome, Tuscany, Lake Como. It was incredible, like to the nines. Like when you want to go, I have the itinerary ready.
And like when she's saying like to the nines, she genuinely, I mean, like honestly, this is like 100% Instagram lifestyle type trip. I'm talking about like Ferraris, and it was just you went all out. But here's what's really interesting, and I want to talk about this a little bit later on in the show, because I want to get down to the meat and potatoes first of what's really going to affect us contractors and the relationship between our customers and the attorneys and everything else. But you did all of that, and your business was still running ridiculously smooth. And as a matter of fact, I think that while you were out, you were doing your course launch.
I was.
Also.
Yes, I was.
So that's like the power of like digital. That's the power of social media. That's the power of just really creating content.
Oh yeah. And everything was planned, ready to go. Like I was recording on the fly too, like here and there when I felt inspired, cool background. But my content was planned. It was still going out. I had my law firm was running. We were still making money. My team was still working. You know, everything was still pumping and moving forward. My course launch was right in the middle of that, and that was amazing too. We had 45 people in the first round, which was incredible. So it all worked out perfectly.
That's awesome. All right. So getting down to the meat and potatoes, what is happening? What is new? What do contractors need to kind of keep an eye out? We know that there's been quite a few changes here in the state of Florida, with the Senate Bill 2D. So kind of like unpack that for us, and what does the landscape look like? And maybe talk about like some of the fears that you're hearing from contractors.
So the biggest thing happening right now is the Senate Bill 2D just passed by the legislature, which goes into effect July 1st. So that actually removes the ability for contractors, any contractor, roofers, EMS, anything, to get paid attorney's fees in lawsuits on an assignment of benefits. So that's like a huge, huge change, because up until this point, so the statute says that any residential commercial policy, if it gets sued under, the insured wins, they get their attorney's fees paid for by the carrier. And so when an assignment of benefits is signed by that insured, they're assigning not only their benefits under the policy, but just their benefits in general as the policy owner, the policy holder, in that position, which includes the right to get attorney's fees. But this law specifically removed that only for AOBs, saying that anybody suing under AOB does not get their attorney's fees paid. And that's a huge change, because most AOB contracts are only for a few $1,000s. You know, it's not something that's usually $100,000 plus, unless you're in the commercial space, of course. But for people who are going out and doing, EMS, TARP, mold, whatever, it's, only a few $1,000s, and the emergency cap is only $3,000. So you can't go and sue on a bill that's $3,000 and then expect to pay attorney's fees, because an attorney is always going to take it some type of percentage if they can't get their fees paid for. So there's no way to possibly get paid under a $3,000 estimate if you're going to give a third to the attorney, plus you have to pay the filing fee. There's not enough meat there, right? So they're completely
Right.
just demolishing the ability of the EMS companies and mold companies, tar companies, all these contractors to get paid under an AOB, which what's happening now. So the changing landscape, right? So every time there's a bill that's passed that's to do with insurance, there's always a challenge. So a bill gets passed, somebody who's affected right now, it's contractors under AOBs, are filing with the court saying this is an unconstitutional law and it needs to be changed or it needs to be stricken down and removed. So that's happened. RAF and AQA have already filed something with the courts. The first thing that usually happens is they'll seek an injunction. What does an injunction do? An injunction just stops the law from being enforced until the courts can go through the whole process of determining whether or not this bill is constitutional and whether or not it should be enforced against the AOB companies, right? So that'll be the next logical step. People have been calling me, panicked. What do we do? Do we use AOBs? Should we stop doing this altogether? Do we only do service contracts?
Right. And that's the natural question, right? And again, this isn't the first time that we have, again, it seems like the AOB is like that one thing that if not every year, every couple of years, it's getting banged and someone's like trying to do something with the AOB and, limit it and, how it's enforceable, et cetera. And all the contractors just constantly get in a frenzy. It's like, well, if I can't use an AOB, what do I do now?
Right, exactly. And I remember back in 2019, it was the same frenzy you're talking about where the attorney's fees statutes changed yet again, right? And so everyone was like, oh my God, we can't use AOBs anymore. It's the end of AOBs, right? Well, once you stop panicking, take a step back and look at the statute says and like, what are your options, strategy? People say, okay, here's how we can work with this new law, right? I don't know what exactly that looks like for getting attorney's fees in this instance. But for that, people worked it out and they still used AOBs. Right now, people are going the more conservative route of not doing AOBs and just doing directions to pay, contingency contracts, service contracts, even if somebody could pay out of pocket or get financing, so that they're not in a position where they've done all this work and now they can't get paid on the AOB. And of course, the downside is they don't have as much control, but I wouldn't want to put somebody in a position where they do continue doing AOBs and then down the line in a year, there's finally a judgment on that challenge with REF and AQA, and the judge determines that the law is fine, and now you can't get paid on any of that work. You see what I mean? Right. So it's kind of like a balance of being conservative and figuring out how is this going to play out.
So in a very crayon-like fashion, break down for me what the fundamental difference is between a direction of pay and an AOB, and does the direction of pay still hold up as much of the aspects of a legitimate contract between you and the homeowner and providing the same kind of security as to whether or not you're going to get paid? So because there's a lot of misunderstandings and a lot of interpretation about what an AOB is and what a direction of pay is, whether or not that's a good service contract, and there's a lot there. So if you were breaking it down for me as if I was painting by numbers, what would that look like?
So your regular services contract, let's say there's no insurance involved. You go out to a property, you're going to do some work, you make an agreement with the homeowner, and they say, okay, we'll pay you this money to do this work. In a direction of pay, you're adding the provision that the homeowner is using insurance and that you have the right to get paid part of that insurance money once the homeowner receives it. So you still have an agreement with the homeowner that you're going to get paid from them, but you're agreeing that you as the contractor can also communicate with the insurance company and that when payment is made, it's also made to you. So in that instance, you're still in a contract with the homeowner. You're not dealing really directly with the insurance company unless you're sending your estimate, you're getting updates and whatnot. So you're not really in the driver's seat. Like you don't have that much control other than figuring out, hey, homeowner, what's going on? What are we going to get paid, et cetera, right? When you get into an assignment of benefits, anything that any benefit, any right to get paid, any benefit to do anything under the policy that the homeowner had, they're assigning over to you. So you're taking the place of the homeowner in that instance for whatever you've done, right? If they had the right to get paid on the work that you did for tarping the roof or doing mold remediation, now you have that right. So you can then go sue the insurance company and get paid. You're in the driver's seat with an assignment of benefits. There's a lot more that's involved under the statute, and I think we talked about this a little more in the past one.
We did,
but
yeah.
in an AOB, there are many more requirements of what you have to do to comply and be valid. But you have the benefit of then being in control. So if you have your department set up, if you are doing this the right way, you can boom, get your invoice paid. You're not constantly trying to follow up and talk to the homeowner. Hey, what's going on? Have you gotten paid? Where's my check, etc. So those are the main differences, right? And the AOB is what's being attacked in this law.
Right. So as far as, lien rights and things like that, because I know contractors have been really concerned about, under the AOB, there's some limitations there under the direction of pay that kind of opens up a little bit. And without obviously giving specific business advice on how someone should or should not, put parameters in place to protect their business. But does that add an additional layer of security? And should a contractor, in your opinion, feel bad about, saying, hey, here's a notice of commencement, all right, and filing the notice of commencement and doing all of the initial legwork that would be necessary in order to have an enforceable lien on a property?
No, I don't think so. I think it's putting yourself in the right position and showing the home. I don't think that contractors should feel bad about anything. This is your business and your livelihood. Put yourself in the right position, showing the homeowner that you're kind of serious and that, like, hey, we need to move forward. We need to get paid. This is our company. I think that's fine if you do it in the right way, that you've educated the homeowner up front about what's the process, what are your expectations, and how is this going to go if you don't get your check, if you don't get paid for the work. I think that that's how it needs to be looked at. And don't be like, oh, I feel bad. Da, da, da. You can always remove the lien if you get paid. You can always work something out. If you start the process and then you work something out with the homeowner and saying, hey, we want to kind of mediate, or we want to kind of figure out what our plan can be. And if it's a payment plan, whatever, that's great. But don't put yourself in a position where it's a year later and then you have to start the process. That's going to put you in a tougher and just more stressful situation.
Right. So now, under the direction of pay, I mean, obviously there's going to be a lot more communication that needs to take place with the homeowner, and really explain to homeowners, hey, this is what the process looks like. This is our best case scenario, and assuming that all the stars align, we're going to get paid A, B, and C, and this is kind of how this roadmap is going to look. But this is the other alternative, right, which I find a lot of contractors just don't like to talk about, and then they start getting really upset because they have an upset customer. The timeline in the customer's eyes seems to be a lot longer, which is having the conversation about, hey, by the way, this is typically how an insurance company may handle this claim, and you and I are going to have to actually be a unit. I will spearhead this to the best of my ability and keep you informed every single step of the way, but understand that at some point we may have to put our war armor on, and you're going to have to be the front-facing party here so that we can go ahead and make sure that not only I get paid, but that the services that we provided for you are covered.
Right. And I mean, you could even phrase it in a way where it's less so about them fighting their insurance company, but it's like, hey, if you don't get paid, you may have to fight. If you don't want to fight, you're just going to have to pay us, out of pocket. And that's not really what we want to do. Talk to them about what they're feeling, right? Because I talk to many people who, for whatever reason, don't want to sue their insurance company. They're so against it. I don't understand it, but that's how they're feeling. And so we have to come up with another strategy. You know what I mean? So talk up front about, hey, this is what that process, it's exactly what you're saying, how the process goes, but more so on, they have options. They have options. They just need to choose from the options. It's not that they have to fight their insurance company. It's not they have to pay you out of pocket. It's that here's the options to do it.
Right. 100%. Well, kind of going back to like we were kind of talking off camera here a little bit, and we were talking about like back in, what was it, whenever the last AOB thing was, 2019, 2018, whatever it was.
2019.
Yeah. Or before there was talks about it, and like I didn't know about the AOB. I didn't even know that was, a thing. Right. So for me, like our first presentation with any customer that we deal with is always about how can we game plan the affordability of this particular project as an out-of-pocket pay, meaning getting creative with financing, getting, whatever needs to be done so that we as an organization can collect that cash and provide a customer with a paid in full invoice. Like that should always, at least in my opinion, should be step number one. And I hear a lot about this about, well, oh, Rico, it's because you're in South Florida and it's a little bit more affluent. Like, look, a homeowner is a homeowner, right? And you're going to have affluent homeowners. You're going to have homeowners that are living paycheck to paycheck. We get all of that, right? But as a general rule of thumb, you should make it, in my opinion, as a contractor, you should make it a rule that when you are going in to provide a service, you're asking for an order and you're saying, this is what the cost is anticipated to be. How would you like to pay for that? And shut up. That's going to open up the floodgates to having a back and forth conversation now with the homeowner. It's like, well, I can't really afford that. I don't have that money laying around. And then you'd be surprised. You ask them a simple question, like, okay, great. Let me ask you a question. Do you have an American Express? You know how many times that's happened to me where they're like, oh yeah. I was like, well, don't you use the points? I'm like, well, yeah, as a matter of fact, I do. I was like, great, there you go.
That's a fantastic. That's fantastic. I never even thought about that. I'm
telling you, like miraculous stuff. It's like, and they're deadly serious about this. Like, I don't have that kind of money laying around. And you just casually ask them, let me ask you a question. Do you have American Express? Well, yeah, I do actually. Do you ever use the points? Well, yeah, I do. Well, then great. There you go. I'll hold like whatever, and then all of a sudden it's like now you got your invoice paid, and kind of like going back to what we were talking about off camera is about now what you've actually done by default is, in my opinion, at least, I feel that you're giving the homeowner, you're giving them an advantage because now they have a legitimate cost incurred. And that changes the entire dynamic of how most claims end up going, right? Doesn't mean that they're not going to get some pushback, but ultimately I feel that they're always in a better position. And then after that, let's say that they legitimately don't have the money. Now you say, okay, great. These are the rest of the options. This is what we could do. How do you want to play it? But I think that the key here is that the degree of communication that you should have with the homeowner, giving them the right options, and then not being scared of losing a deal because of the circumstances that may or may not happen with the insurance carrier.
Right. And I also think that everybody has to have skin in a game in a transaction, right? If you're going to go in there and say, don't worry, you don't have to pay for anything. You're not responsible for anything. We'll just come and do it. Now the homeowner has zero responsibility for anything, and they don't understand what the process is either. So if you come back to them and say, hey, we're actually gonna have to get paid. Well, do they know how much work that you've done? Do they know what the process is, how difficult it is? No. Have you educated them right? Like, nobody goes into any kind of sale saying, hey, it's usually $1,000, but today we'll do it for zero. That doesn't happen, right? You've got to give somebody some responsibility and skin in the game so that they're working with you on the process so that you do get paid for the work that you did to save their house.
Right. And that totally makes sense. So with this new bill, obviously, now contractors, would you suggest that contractors now, especially while things are getting worked out, go with the direction of pay as opposed to the traditional AOB?
That is what I'm hearing a lot of people are doing. Obviously, everyone's going to have what's important to them and what risks they're willing to take. And
I love how attorneys notice how she answered that. I asked, do you recommend? And she's like, I've heard that what people are doing. So if we play this back 2 years from now, it's like, well, I listened to the show and lawyer Britt said, she's like, no.
You're lucky I didn't start that with, well, disclaimer, because this is not legal advice.
Right. Lucky. We're going to have to plaster that underneath the video.
I would hope that people know this is not legal advice and that if they have a particular situation, they should talk to an attorney. But I mean, most people are going to be more conservative in this unclear time of what's going to happen. Is the injunction going to go through? Is the law going to be deemed unconstitutional? Is it going to be valid? And then nobody's going to be able to use AOBs and sue under a small estimate. So in these kind of times, it's usually best to be conservative for a little bit, see how it's going to play out. I feel like the people that are at the forefront are the ones taking the most risk right now, which is fine. And you can see how this play out. But if you're smaller or if you don't want to take on much risk, it's probably better to be a little more conservative.
We were talking about some of the clauses, which is the equal protection and the single subject rule, which you said that it's not really something that's that common. Can you talk to us a little bit about like some of these little quirks that you found in the bill?
Yes. So actually, those are not in the bill. Those are the reasons that RAP and AQA are challenging the
Right,
validity.
right. Yeah,
So
correct.
when you're challenging a bill, when you're challenging a new law, rather saying that this law should not be a law, it's invalid, you have to have reasons, right? And so reasons are unconstitutionality. It's not a constitutional law. Well, why is that? What does our Constitution say? And this is the Florida Constitution, by the way. I'm not talking about the big one that, written however many years ago. Florida Constitution, right? So there's obviously it's still an equal protection clause. So equal protection is exactly what it sounds like. Equal protection of the laws. Everybody has access to the same laws and everybody's treated the same under the laws. So access to the attorney's fee statute by insureds, by homeowners saying, if we sue our insurance company, we're going to get our fees paid for. That's accessible to insureds. And if they assign their rights under the policy, if they sign their rights as an insured to an AOB company, well, now the AOB company does not have the same rights to get their attorney's fees paid for as a homeowner would in the same position. So the argument is that that's a violation of equal protection because you have some people, some entities being treated different than some people and some entities. So that's the basis there. And if they just tossed in there as well the single subject rule, which you hear about that in like law school. You learn about that in constitutional law, and then you just never hear about it again. But people just toss it in there, right? So the single subject rule is exactly what it sounds like. Again, one bill, one law can only discuss a single subject. So you can have a bill that's talking about insurance law and also talking about state parks, like that. Those do not relate; they don't go together, right? So there's an argument that there are touch points and things that are being touched in that law that were unrelated. So it's multiple subjects, not a single subject. I just thought that was funny because something you learn about in law school, but it's just like some little thing that's tossed here and there. You don't hear about it again.
Right. It's not like an everyday type of practice, like every time that you.
Yeah, it's not the equal protection clause. That's for sure.
Awesome. Cool. So, moving forward right now, the consideration for a lot of the restoration contractors should be, hey, again, run your business however it is that you want. If you have legal questions, definitely feel free to reach out formally to Brittany, and I'm sure that you'll be more than happy to take a look at people's contracts or at least put their minds at ease, and in your particular situation. But as a general rule, if you're, a smaller organization or you're just an organization that doesn't necessarily want to be hung out to dry, maybe playing the direction of pay is, a route for you to look into. Maybe. And just maybe, this is just Rico being a little crazy, right? Maybe you want to break away from the pack and start training your people to approach homeowners and business owners as if they were selling a real product and service and saying, this costs X amount of dollars, here's the order. And start practicing that. Because I think that companies, because I don't think this is going to stop here. Right. And it could, maybe it'll just be like this for, the next 10 years and everybody's, all honky dory. But we've seen a pattern already where people are attacking, the AOBs, what contractors can inform homeowners about, right? About getting a public adjuster, about getting an attorney, about whether or not if they have the right to a new roof or anything like that. So the likelihood of this stopping is very, very unlikely. And they're just, if they don't get this, they'll find something else. Or if they do get this, then hold on, right? Because then you just start, chipping away at the block. So I think that breaking away from this kind of a model and having more of a transactional model, should be something that companies are looking at. Whether or not, everybody can adopt that, that's obviously a totally different story. I mean, hence, it's kind of why we have insurance in the first place, right? Like, that's, you would think. You would think, right? It's great. I want to go ahead and disperse some of my risk. I'm paying for insurance. So that way, in the event of their, I'm covered. But, again, it's a crazy time that we're living in now. So when do you think that what do you think the timeline would be for us to start getting some more clarity on some of these changes?
So like I kind of mentioned before, usually when there's a challenge to the courts for a new bill, a new law, the first move is to get an injunction. An injunction is just an order by the court saying you being the state, cannot enforce this law until we figure out whether or not it's valid. Because as we all know, courts take time. That's just the nature of litigation and the way this works. It takes some time to move through the court system. So an injunction is supposed to prevent enforcement of anything or stop somebody from doing something, but in this case, stop enforcement of the law before like a full year has passed and damage is done to so many people and so many businesses. So that's the first move, is you get the injunction or not. And to get an injunction, the moving party, so in this case RAF and AQA, have to prove that they're likely to win on the merits at the end of the day. And that's a pretty big hurdle, right? Because if they cannot show that they're going to win, or it's a very weak argument, the state's not going to stop enforcing a law that otherwise might be valid. So that's going to be the first move. I think it's usually the first move. So we'll see what happens and whether the injunction is granted or not. And then you'll know, okay, if it's granted, that means they have a really high probability of winning and getting that provision removed or deemed invalid. So that'll be the first thing that we see. If it's not, then, who knows what's going to happen, and we'll see as it progresses.
Where should people, is there a resource or a place where contractors and even homeowners, right, where they should kind of keep an eye out for new developments on what's happening? Is there a good website or resource on where they can kind of keep their finger on the pulse of exactly what's going on? Because again, when we're talking about a lot of like these Facebook groups and whatnot, there's a lot of misinformation and a whole lot of opinions that may or may not be true. And if you listen to some of this advice sometimes, well, maybe they're steering you down the wrong direction. So where should someone look to kind of, stay on top of what's going on?
So usually you're going to hear about these things in the news locally. So always keeping your ear to the local news. But I set up Google Alerts because there's things like the Insurance Journal and all these. There's so much fluff in there, and it's not always about like Florida. It's not always about local. So I set up Google Alerts for the bill name and the statute name and see if there's anything that's coming up, any news sources saying, hey, there's new this, new that. Like when the special session was called by DeSantis, like I knew about that. I got alert, hey, special sessions, going forward. And I was like, oh, wow, what are they going to be discussing? Because I set up those Google Alerts. So that's usually how. But somebody like a homeowner who's not really like tracking it in the industry like we are, they're just going to hear about it in the news.
Right. So you're saying that you should use technology to stay on top of what's going on?
God.
Wow.
Technology works.
Who would have thought? And this is going to be a great transition because I think that this kind of gives us a good idea of what's going on, the changes in the landscape. I don't really think that we need to go ahead and beat a dead horse. I do want to talk to you though about a little bit about your social media, because your social media is like off the chain, and you've got the workshop going on, you've got the course going on, you've got all of this other stuff. And since we kind of like tethered into technology, I think that this would be a great opportunity to go ahead and talk about that. But before we do, let's go ahead and take a quick break.
Are you tired of sending claims to an attorney and never hearing from them again? No one likes to chase attorneys for updates. That's why at Premier Property Law, our team sends you automatic updates every time something happens in your claim, so you're always in the loop. No chasing required. To learn more about our intentionally crafted client experience, contact me, Lawyer Britt, owner and founder of Premier Property Law, at 954-233-0120, or follow me on Instagram at lawyer.britt with 2 T's. That's LAWYER.BRITT. Can't wait to connect.
All right, so we are back. Let's go ahead and talk about social media. I mean, look, I'm going to throw it in your court. You kind of pick it up from there. Do you want to talk about the workshop first? Do you want to talk about social media as a general rule, and then how that's helped your business, how it could potentially help contractors, and then talk about like the course that you actually have going on? Like, go ahead and you just kind of take it from there.
I have so many things to cover.
I know.
So I'm actually that backwards. So when I first started my law, well, actually before then, we'll start OG. So I started posting on social media law firm insurance content in June or July of 2020. So right when the pandemic hit, bored as heck, nothing to do. I was like, you know what? I had this idea to market on social. So I'm going to make a few videos. And I mean, they were nothing special. Like, you can go back and look at those videos. They're still up. And it's me just standing with an iced coffee in my living room, like talking about insurance and how much is your claim worth and like what happens if you have a roof leak and all this stuff, right?
Do you cringe a little bit when you look back on your videos?
It's so
like, oh my God, they're horrible.
It's so cringeworthy. Right? But like, you didn't make it if you don't look back and it's cringeworthy. So I'm going to leave it up forever. Yeah. And I tell people when people are like, oh, I don't know if I want to start, I'm like, please go back and scroll through my however many posts and look at my June 2020 post because it's cringe. But I got a lead from the very first video. Somebody responded and was like, hey, like my da 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 da. And I think it was somebody I knew in like high school or college too. And they were like, oh, so and so needs help. And I got a lead from it. And I was like, wow, this works. This definitely works. So I doubled down and I created this whole process. Mind you, I was working for somebody else at the time. I was working for another law firm. So I just wanted to market and like bring in cases to that law firm. And I was posting every single day, doing all these videos. People were asking me questions about insurance law, and like, roofs are not that sexy. Insurance law is not sexy at all. But I was trying to make it fun and educational and entertaining. And so I kept posting, got to the point where I was bringing in enough clients and people were noticing me enough that I went out on my own. And then just kind of like, I think it's like in end of 2020 is when I really started blowing up, a bunch of followers, putting funnels in place. We were talking about funnels earlier, that I could capture these leads, talk to these new clients, sign them up. I got 100 clients in the first 100 days of opening my firm. And it just blew up from there. And I was like, wow, social media is it. Like to this day, I have not done paid advertising. I've only done organic social media, and it's blown us up. We did 7 figures in our first full 12 months. So it was wild. And as I started getting more and more attention, I started getting, questions from other lawyers and other contractors and investors saying, hey, how are you doing this? Like, aside from working with you or whatever, how are you getting all these clients? How are you doing the social media thing? And I was giving people like help and tips and calls here and there, but it got to the point where I was like, I can do a program on this and just teach people all at once if they want to learn. And that is where the From Content to Clients program was birthed. And that's what I launched that in April and May. And we're actually doing the 3rd module live tonight. I'm very excited. And it was just like, this is how I did it. Here are my strategies from A to Z, right? Like getting the actual content going, how you're making the content, what you're making the content about, editing, planning, hiring VAs, growing your team, creating an actual process for doing it. Because like doing it on the fly is stressful, and it's not going to create that longevity of a system that's building clientele. So that's where that all birthed from. And I actually did a workshop in the end of April called Accelerated Content. So one of the biggest pain points, people are like, oh, I have no time. Everyone tells me that they don't have time, but they do have time. They just aren't using it wisely, or they don't know where to send it. So I created this workshop, Accelerated Content, about how to create a week's worth of content in an hour. And it's possible. And so I did that workshop, and it went really well. People still message me like, hey, I'm creating my content menu, which is something I talk about to really accelerate the way that you make content in the workshop. It's actually available now. Like you can, go to lawyerbritt.co, lawyer Britt with 2 T's, BRITT.co/workshop, and watch the workshop. I mean, it's fantastic. People, they watch the workshop and then they actually start taking action. And that's the whole point of why I put together the workshop and the program, is so people take action, because I believe in the power of social media. I mean, you and I connected on social media because I connected with Vince on social media and invited me to the live event. I met you there. Like there's so many people and so many opportunities and so many events that you would never know about if you weren't connected in social media and in the space. So truly believe in the power. And that's where this birthed from.
What do you say to people that say that social media is way too saturated and that there's too many creators? Because I hear that all the time.
If something is saturated, it means that
Did you just do like for those that are only listening to the podcast, she 100% just rolled her eyes. She's like, what are you talking about?
I did. Because when something is saturated, it means that there's demand. It means that people want what you're offering. So spin it to how you want to do it. I mean, like there were there were plenty of PI attorneys and family attorneys who were doing like fun, sexy, crazy story videos and posts on social media. And here I am with insurance. Like I still don't know anybody that does property insurance that has any content on social media. But I was like, sure, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to see how it goes, right? So spin it to what you do. Spin it to how you operate. Like there's plenty of demand for seeing professionals and getting education online. And that means there's opportunity.
Absolutely. What do you recommend for people that they really want to do it, right? They understand the power of social media. They understand the power of content. They've consumed so much of it, and they are experts, or at the very least are very passionate about their area of expertise, but they can't get over that fear of putting themselves on camera, of hearing their voice, or they just think that their business isn't exciting, right? Especially for a lot of us in the restoration arena, or like mold isn't exciting. Air movers are not exciting. So what do you say to that?
So to the first part, I say do it scared. I tell people that all the time. That is like one of my taglines. Just do it scared. Don't wait till you're over the fear. Don't like try to meditate the fear away. Like you're going to be afraid until you're used to doing it. So just keep doing it. Like the first few videos, the first two like podcast live streams, like I was so nervous. I was like ready and prepared, like sitting at the desk like an hour before, like trying to like, recite my lines that I didn't have. So just do it scared. Get started. It's not going to be comfortable, but if you want it bad enough, like there's going to be a point where the desire to do it is just going to outweigh that fear. And that's when you're actually going to take action. I think that's what happened for me because I wanted to do social media for years. I wanted to do marketing for years, but I was the same. I was actually shy. I was like, oh no, people are going to judge me. And then I was like, screw it. I want to do it. I have to do it. Like I have to try at least so that'll outweigh it. And, for people that are,
Right.
What was the second half of your question? I've already forgotten. There was the do it scared. And then you asked about something else that I now can't remember.
Yeah, I forget my own questions. It's not like I have any of this stuff outlined. Yeah. So yeah, we were talking about social media. We're talking about just getting over that initial fear and just that fear of producing content, getting on video. They don't want to hear their voice. They hate their mannerisms. Just people just judge themselves entirely too much, right? Sure. So that's a big hurdle. So the question is like, how do you do that? Or one of the other big hurdles, if you will, is they're like, well, I don't have a following and I'm starting from scratch and I literally have 15 people that follow me. What do I do?
So when I first started, I did not start from scratch. I started using my personal page and I posted my business content, my new business content to my personal page. And that's why somebody that I already knew from the past connected with me. That was the first lead, right? Somebody said, hey, I need help with something from that first video. So if you're starting from scratch from 0 followers, and you're trying to build up that base, it's going to be a lot harder than if you just convert your personal page. If you still want a real personal page, you can start another and have your 50 friends and family follow you on there, right? But the network that you've built up on your current page, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, whatever, you can build that up into your business page. And then the people that are already following you for years and years that you've known for your life, those are going to be the first people that are going to trust you and communicate with you and connect with you, right? Because it's not somebody finding you randomly on the internet. It's like, oh, hey, yeah, this is so-and-so I knew from back in the day, and now they're doing this, right? You're getting out to your network right away in the most efficient way possible. You're not have to go to networking events. You don't have to get lunch and dinner with these people. You're literally just getting in front of them on your Instagram, on your Facebook, whatever. I think that's super powerful.
Personal brand or business brand?
Both. So for some people, I understand they've got their company. I have my law firm, obviously, but I go all in on the marketing as Laywer Britt because I think people connect with people. So when I'm marketing as me and I'm like, reach out to me, reach out to my firm. So they reach out because Laywer Britt, but then they work with Premier Property Law. So I think you need to build up both. If you want to go heavy on the business content, go heavy on the business content and your business brand. But truly, I believe people connect to people. So go heavy on your personal brand too. And you can also post personal content. I post plenty of personal. That's how I went to Italy, right? I posted all about Italy and I had people that were messaging me the whole time. Even a couple clients who follow me on social were like, looks like you're having a great time. So, doing that personal connects people with you. So you can do both at the same time.
So for, the restoration, because obviously there's a lot of contractors that listen to the show and watch the show. They're like, well, oh God, I just don't find my day to day. I'm in the truck a good portion of the day, or I'm putting out fires, or I'm doing this, or I'm doing that. And it's not fun and it's not exciting. And a lot of people do social media wrong in the sense of they'll take a picture of a moldy wall and hashtag mold and that's it, right? so that is boring and it's really not adding any value or even entertainment value to anybody's life. So what should the content creation process look like, and do you cover this kind of mind mapping, brainstorming aspect of what's necessary for a good social media profile in your course?
So yes, that is in depth what the course is about. The course is from content to client. So it's how to create content, how to build and actually launch your social media profile or profiles so that you're getting clients from it. And nobody's going to reach out to you because you put a stock photo of a moldy wall and did hashtag mold. That's just not it, right? That's not how social media works anymore. So maybe back in 2012 and everybody was posting booty pics and their dinner and stuff, but not now. Now you actually have to provide value. And I actually go deep into that in my program about what value actually is. But in the workshop, we also cover, how to actually figure out what should I be talking about? What should I be posting about? What do people need to hear, right? What do I need to create for my audience? And I always tell people entertain and then educate. get into like a video and make a joke about something that's happened or show you a success that you've had in some job or in some claim, and then explain how it happened or explain a quick tip, right? It could be simple. It doesn't have to always be related to exactly what you do. But if you're out at a house and someone's, got water gushing out and someone's like, I don't know how to turn off my water, great opportunity to do a video of this is how you turn off your water if you've got a problem. Because how many,
Right.
I barely know how to do that, right? And I know how a house works. So plenty of people don't know how to do that. And I think it's important to just be looking for those opportunities of like, what can I teach people today? What do I know that people need to hear?
Right. Or what do you know? What do you believe? Or what do you think? What are you passionate
Right.
about? Like there's so many different avenues for you to go down. One of the things that I know is a big holdup for a lot of people though is this whole identity aspect. In other words, they have a fear of being pigeonholed. Let's say let's use you as an example, right? Lawyer Britt, you've gone in 100% and cool. Like, maybe that's what you see for your life till, the end of your days. But like, there's a lot of people that maybe are, they're doing fire restoration or, they've just got a tarping company and that's kind of their bread and butter. That's what's, putting food on the table and they want to get more business, but they don't necessarily want to be known as like the tarping guy, let's say. Should that be a concern? Should that not be a concern? Should they just be like, hey, look, this is why, I'm kind of building my own personal brand. These are my ideas. These are my thoughts. This is currently what I'm doing now. This is my existing endeavor. And I'm open to whatever life throws my way. Or is there a different strategy or a different mindset that people should go in with?
If you're speaking to everyone, you are speaking to no one. I wholeheartedly believe that. So your marketing should be targeted at who you're trying to connect with, who you're trying to serve, what kind of clients you're trying to get. And I don't think it matters if right now you're doing tarping and then, 5 years from now you're in short-term rentals for real estate, right? You can always pivot. But if you're not reaching the audience you want to reach now, you're not going to be able to build up a brand and build up a following and an audience anyway. So it doesn't matter, right? If you're too broad, people are like, yeah, why do I need this person? Why am I following this person? What do I need from them, right? I mean, for me, I started out Lawyer Britt. I still am Lawyer Britt. And people knew me as Lawyer Britt, like lawyer, right? Lawyer is the key word there, right? I'm a lawyer. I'm a
Right.
property insurance lawyer. So that's how I built up the following. And that's who I was targeting is property owners and restoration companies and roofers. But I also have a program for professionals teaching them how to do content. So that's not exactly lawyer, right? But I'm still doing it as Lawyer Britt. So you can always expand, you can always pivot later on if you want to. And your core people, your core following, your audience who enjoys your content, enjoys what you're putting out, they're going to follow you along. Like there's plenty of people who I have transitioned from even like as broad as like bloggers to YouTubers or something like that, right? You're still going to follow that person's content, even if they kind of mold and pivot along the way.
Yeah, it's about digging deep and then going wide,
Right.
Just getting that deep connection with whatever your followers are, whether it's 100 or 100,000,
Right.
and just getting that real tight connection. And it's amazing what happens too. And also, how many times haven't you seen people that they're trying to build their following and someone sends them a DM or an instant message or whatever the case may be, and they don't respond. And they're really upset at the fact that they're not growing. Right? Because they never even give themselves an opportunity to get quote unquote raving fans or people that genuinely support what it is that they're doing. Right. So that connection and making yourself still accessible to some degree, especially in the early stages, is really important.
There's a book called Superfans by Pat Flynn. Do you know who Pat Flynn is? So
Of course.
I
Yeah.
know I've loved Pat Flynn for
And then
such a
he's
long
also
time.
got like the Will It Fly, which
Will
is a
It
great
Fly?
book.
Yeah, that was a good one too. That was more product based, but super fans. I mean, even just that concept. The concept is all you need is 1,000 super fans, and you are golden for the rest of your days. If you have 1,000 people who love what you produce and what you do and what you create so much that they're going to buy whatever you put out, they're going to hire you for whatever they need that you offer, you're set. You have those 1,000 people. So that's like kind of the idea is you don't need 100,000. You just need a core base of people who really enjoy you, really enjoy your content and want to follow you and pay you for what you do.
Right. So if someone wanted to go ahead and, kind of get more information, kind of dig into the course, they're like, great, I really want to go ahead and grow my social media. I'd love to not spend any money on marketing and advertising. If I could go ahead and do this organically, where would they go in order to participate in your course?
So the course is currently waitlisted, but you can go to watch the workshop. That's going to be your first step. Watch the workshop, take some action on that. And then when the course opens up again, then you'll be on the wait list. You'll be the first to know. It's lawyerbritt.co, lawyerbritt.co/workshop. That'll take you right to the workshop. You can watch it immediately.
Cool. And all of those links and all the information for that is also going to be in the video description below, as well as in the show notes. If you're listening to this on your device, just go on over to your show notes, and all of the links will be there live. And then basically the workshop, they can go ahead and watch that, and then automatically they'll be whitelisted. So once you open this back, because this particular round is actually live. You're doing this live.
Oh yeah.
Right. Yeah, which is awesome. That's a great experience.
It is really fun. And I'm playing with having a more involved component. So right now we have a Slack group, and I'm going to continue that even when we do the next launch. I want to do a Slack group because people need support. It's like you were saying before, people are so scared to do it, or they feel like they have no time. So it's like, it's having that community of people who are also scared. And it's just like, hey, we're going to post this first video. Okay, I'm going to do it if you're going to do it. Like, that's so helpful when you're getting started.
Right. Yeah, having a community is really, especially when it's a like-minded community and everybody's kind of like at the same level or trying to achieve the exact same thing. That it's such an important component to success. Even for me on our course that we have for digital marketing, Google Ads in particular, Total Ads Domination, which again, I changed it from Google Ads Domination because I didn't want to get a cease and desist. So because that was coming to Total Ads Domination. We have a live component, which is why I call it a coaching program, because it's not just a digital course. It's actually, we get 10 sessions together that you have access to, every week. And it's amazing, like what happens there. And it's just being able to provide that additional bit of guidance that, confidence would be like, yep, you actually did this right, or you did this better than me. Like, congratulations. Right. And that happens like all the time. You'll see people like come up with these creative things, and you're like, wow, like that was amazing. Right. And if you follow, guys like Pat Flynn or John Lee Dumas or, any of these like, huge influencers, and even within their communities, you'll see certain students that knew nothing about nothing that then are being showcased by those very individuals because of like this new creative spin that they just kind of like found, and that's really working for them. So, the goal is just to get started, put your content out there. You never know who you're going to affect. And I think that what you're doing is really awesome. So not only are you like taking care of claims, but then you're also showing other pros like how to get more business.
Sharing all the knowledge.
Exciting.
All the knowledge I have,
That's
I will always share.
Awesome. Cool. So, Restoration Nation, listen, check out the link below. And don't forget, look, if you've got a question and or a comment for our very own Lawyer Britt, you could always pick up the phone and dial 678-TALK, the number 2, us. So that's 678-TALK-2-US. Drop us a line. Let us know who you are, where you're calling from, and what your question may be, or comment, whatever. We're open to comments as well. And Lawyer Britt will go ahead and answer that for you live next month when we do our next Legal Corner. So without further ado, guys, make sure that you remember to hustle, hack, and dominate. Lawyer Britt, you're the best. Catch you next time.
You've been listening to Restoration Domination, interviewing the restoration business's top industry insiders, the movers and shakers, the hustlers and hackers. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. Hook up with us on Instagram and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Restoration Domination to catch video interviews, highlights, and behind-the-scenes content. And follow your host at Rico Garcia Jr. Till next time, this is Restoration Domination. Hustle, hack, dominate.